Hey everyone, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justin, and this is
What's up, everybody? This is Derek. How you doing, Justin?
or what else?
What do you
You don't
mean,
want to
or
bring
what
back
else?
the birds that steals?
Nah, I was trying to think of a new name, what I would take, but I haven't really come across anything that I would want to take.
No alias yet.
Yeah, no, not for this. The only thing that's just sticking into my mind right now is just a single word from this chapter, but I don't really feel like it fits for a name.
What is it?
Oh, it's in that last section.
Oh, so you're gonna wait to reveal?
That and I can't fully remember what the word is right now.
Oh, was it transmorphify or whatever?
No, it starts with an I. Not it insufficient. That's what it was.
Oh, you want to go as insufficient? Man, that is
I don't
super
know.
degrading.
Hey man, let me degrade myself if I want to.
You know what? That's insufficient.
No, I just man, when I read that, I was just like, I don't know. Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get there. But I really just like it really just struck a chord with me for whatever reason.
Huh. I mean, that's totally fair. I was a big fan of that last section.
Yeah, it was pretty freaking awesome.
No, I guess I'm doing good. I've been looking forward to recording with you pretty much all day, all week, really. And second, The Last of Us, the next episode plays tonight, so I'm really excited to watch that as well. So,
Yeah,
you?
likewise. It's well, I'm looking forward to watching The Last of Us. I kind of forgot about it that we get it a couple days early here before the Super Bowl. So yeah, it was a pretty relaxed day at work. Wasn't terribly busy, so it was kind of nice on Friday and sliding into the weekend now.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it has also come to our attention that we may need to redefine our pie rules. What sounded like Hyrule. Maybe we get a Legend of Zelda in here. Link's pie arena of time.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, I think, and the more I think about it, I'm like, oh, those are kind of like those are two separate incidences. So very possible that both of us could take a pie. So yeah, and I know we briefly kind of talked about it, but I think I guess the stance I'm going for is like I don't think that the book unleashed the whirlwind, which I don't necessarily think that Shaik is related. I mean, she's related, and that was kind of like a consequence was that she got killed. But I don't think that her dying has anything to do with the book being real or not. If it is real and it did unleash the whirlwind, that's where I would think that I should get a pie. But if the book is fake, that's where I think you should get a pie.
So that's maybe where it could get complicated is if the book doesn't turn out to be real and Shaik still returns.
Then I would get a pie as well. Right.
Right. Then we both take one.
We both take pies.
I can
But
live with that.
I can live with that too. So are you saying so you agree that they're two separate bets then?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. I guess my whole sticking point is I think Shaik returns somehow, some capacity, uh, and if not, I guess to me, yeah, I guess that feels unrelated from the book. So if that doesn't happen, then I guess I get pie in the face.
Got it. So it's potential that one of us could take two pies in the face.
Oh boy,
Is that
I
is
didn't
that
even think about that possibility.
is that what we're saying?
We might as well double it up.
All right, well, you heard it here first.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I guess I had one thing here before I forget about it. I was going to mention this last week, but I forgot. So I got a Twitter message at the end of January. It was the Malazan map that I sent you.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, but that Ryan Ward sent that to me on Twitter, which was pretty cool. He sent me one for a globe version also. So it wasn't just like a flat map. It was like you could
Actual globe.
yeah, but I couldn't get that to work. So I was kind of bummed about that. But it was cool just to see the whole world, even though like we only know Genebacus and 7 cities, and there's
Right.
a lot more of the world than that.
Right. Yeah. I think it would be cool if that could be somehow replicated physically. I would love to have a Malazan globe.
Well, I wonder if you could find it on like Etsy or something like that.
Probably. I would imagine. Maybe I'll have to do some research.
Yeah, and then we'll shout out our 2 patrons. We've got Jan, the picker of pies, and Luciana. I still don't think maybe she's heard an episode now since the V Castro episode. Well, we didn't shout out on that, did we? The V Castro episode.
We did.
Did we?
Mm-hmm.
With V? Well,
No, not with V, but we did with the wrap up when we finished off the book.
Oh, true. Well, we haven't been corrected, so
yeah, right. Yes. So, but I mean, they've only had access to that episode since last night, so they may not have gotten around to it.
Fair point. But just want to shout out our patrons here. Thank you much, both of you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess should we get into our actually before we do that, did we want to tell our audience what it is that we're planning for the next 2 episodes here?
Yeah, so next chapter is the last episode of this last episode of the Subbook of Whirlwind, and then shortly after that will be the 1-year anniversary of our first episode being published, which would be March 3rd. So we are planning on doing a live stream right around there. March 3rd is a Friday. We've got to reach out. We're talking about maybe doing our sub-book wrap-up as that live stream. So we'll have to reach out to Smiley's podcast and see if that will work for them, if we can get them on for that. So we'll see how that goes. I guess it's possible it could be just you and I, but 4's a crowd, so that'd be fun.
Right.
More
yeah.
the merrier.
I had a blast with them last time, so I'm excited to get back to it again with them.
Yeah, and I guess by the time this episode is out and you're listening to it, we will probably know one way or the other what we're doing. But the time, as of right now, we're not 100% sure yet, but some stuff in the works.
That's the plan anyway. That's the plan.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I guess outside of that, I don't have anything major to report on. Do you say we get into a chapter 9, episode 11, Deadhouse Gates here?
Sounds good.
Do you want to take the epigraph or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll take it.
All right.
The Malazan engineers are a unique breed. Cantankerous, foul-mouthed, derisive of authority, secretive and thick-headed. They are the hearthstone of the Malazan army. From the Imperial Military, Senjal. Not sure if I pronounced that right.
I would say the E is silent at the end. Maybe. I don't know.
well, Senjali? I don't know. Somebody can correct us.
Maybe it's Senjala.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the first time we come across that word.
Yeah. How nice was it to have the epigraph right in front of you instead of having to dig through a book?
It was nice. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. All right. First section here. Kalam descended into a dried up riverbed, finding the first signs of the uprising. Malazan refugees had been ambushed from the high grass lining both banks of the dried up riverbed. Kalam observed the carnage from the saddle. One last glance around revealed that Apt was nowhere to be found, but Kalam knew that he was close by. Kalam dismounts. He observed the tracks of livestock being led away by the ambushers. His search told him that there were survivors and that they had headed south. Kalam knew there was little hope for them out on the plain, as the nearest town was 5, maybe 6 days away. Apt could be heard further downstream, and Kalam looked up to see it. It had been 5 days since the Diver attack, and no sign that the shapeshifter pursued them, although he could feel it in his bones that they were being followed by someone. Kalam climbed back into the saddle, and he saw that Apt had discovered the trail left by the fleeing survivors. Kalam tells Apt it's not their problem. Nudging his mount forward, he went in a direction that would go around the trail. As dusk approached, he rode across the plain. The grassland dipped up ahead into another dried-up riverbed. As he approached, figures rose from the cover along the bank. Kalam raises his hands and said that he rides with the whirlwind. A man stepped closer, tulwar in hand, and told Kalam to join them in their feast. They asked Kalam to tell them stories from the north. Kalam replied that he hasn't spoken to anyone in a while, and his news is months old. Turning the question on them, he asked what news they had. Kalam is led to their encampment where a fire is about to be lit. The leader explains that the Mesla have done nothing but die, except for one, far to the southeast, led by some Wiccan. Kalam just grunts in response to this, as he's passed some wine and questions what he heard. The leader agrees with Kalam and tells him Hisar and how it's in the hands of Kamist Relo, along with other cities, and in Aaron, they have the Gistal within. They continue to talk about the rebellion and the Malazan and how Kamist Relo is trailing them. Their conversation turns to Kalam's horse, which was not for sale. After some back and forth about the horse, Kalam asks if they were betrayers of the apocalypse. All motion in the camp ceases at this point when that was heard. The leader questions Kalam on what they said to make Kalam think this way. The leader begins to explain that they are not murderers or deserters, and that he simply was interested in Kalam's horse. The leader then kind of jokes with Kalam about taking his horse and the dagger at his belt, and Kalam doesn't see this as a joke and tells the leader if he tries, that he would be the first one dead. The leader took a minute to respond, but then tells Kalam that the assassin has no sense of humor, and explains how he acquired his food, and that they will visit the Mesla again at dawn, and there are women there. Scowling, Kalam asks if this is their war against the Mesla, and why haven't they just simply joined other apocalypse armies, as this is what he plans on doing outside of Aaron. The leader agrees and tells Kalam that they plan to join the armies outside of Aaron as well, and elaborates further that they would bring livestock to the army, and should they just leave the rich Mesla they come upon? Kalam explains that the Odin will take care of them. The leader stared for a moment, and not even acknowledging that statement, he simply tells Kalam that they attack at dawn. And would Kalam like to join? Kalam responds and says that since these Mesla were south, and that was the direction he was already headed, that he would indeed join them. But there was nothing holy in rape. The leader responded by saying it was not holy, but just. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess there really isn't a ton to pick out. It just seems like a very transitional section, if that makes any sense. I guess it was good. I just don't have anything to talk about, really.
Yeah, not a lot. I feel like it's just kind of setting the tone for the chapter a little bit.
Right. And knowing what I know about the next chapter, and it's the last chapter of the subbook Whirlwind, I kind of almost makes it seem like this chapter is maybe like set up a little bit, like the calm before the storm, so to speak, if I had to guess. But that's just me going off of what I know about media and books and shit.
Maybe things will really start popping off here in the next chapter.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, but it is like a 46-ish page chapter, so I can only imagine that shit hits the fan. But I guess we'll find out, right?
We will. We will read and find out very shortly.
Right. I guess really the only two things that I had was, correct me if I'm wrong though, sir, but the gistal that these I don't even know what you call them, raiders are talking about at Aaron, I'm pretty sure that's Malik Rel, right? Because isn't he a gistal priest?
I guess.
Going all the way back to the beginning of the book?
I don't remember for sure.
Got it.
Maybe. I was reading your comment and I'm like, Malik Rel. I kept thinking that Malik was Ralik. And I'm like, we haven't even talked about him this book.
Aslick, remember?
Right, yeah.
Aslick Rel. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm like 98% sure that's Malik is the gistal, is what these guys are talking about. But if you think about it, they're hunting down or have attacked some, Malazan refugees, right? So, but I was always under the understanding that Malik Rel, being that he was kind of like Pormqual's like picked dude, the guy that Pormqual picked to do whatever it is that Malik Rel does. So it's interesting that they're talking about him from like the whirlwind's perspective. Like, I'm not crazy in thinking that, right?
No, I don't think so.
Because if I remember correctly, it was Duiker and Malik Rel who were like standing at some like boat, not some boat, but like some part of castle or whatever overlooking like the harbor, and they were observing Coltane and the Wiccans kind of start shit. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, when they're coming off the boat.
Right. Yeah.
Was that Malik? I guess I don't remember who else it would have been.
Yeah, they were like observing the Wiccans. It would have been with the Red Blades, those brothers that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So
I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I guess I don't remember for certain who was, if it was Malik there or not, but
yeah,
definitely like.
I guess at the end of the day, in my mind, I always just associated Malik with the Malazan Empire, and to hear it being talked as if it's some type of ally to the Whirlwind is like red flagging me,
Like he's playing double agent.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe he's got eyes on the real Book of Jijana.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a thought of who just all might be. But maybe that's kind of like the eel in Gardens of the Moon. You're picking up on this instead of me this time.
Fair. Well, that's just because I thought it was an L.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. That's the one thing. That's the one you'll get.
I won't rub your face in it.
No worries. Well, I guess the only other thing that I had was, I know that when these leader of these bandits and Kalam, was joking with Kalam about taking his horse and dagger and his belt, and then Kalam just tells him, well, if you do, you're going to be the first one dead. But I didn't catch that at first when I first read it. It wasn't until I was summarizing where I like, that's some really clever foreshadowing.
I don't think I thought it was. I didn't pick up on the foreshadowing, but like when it happened, I definitely wasn't surprised like that it happened.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, those are the only two that I had. I love the way that this chapter started out. I like the way that it progresses. So with that, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. I guess the only thing I would add is how messed up is it that these raiders or bandits agree that rape isn't holy, but it's justified. It's fucked up, man.
Well, I feel like we get a similar back when Fiddler, Absalar, and Crocus were going through that town, and they like killed the 6 soldiers that were like after this little girl. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
And then Fiddler has a conversation about rape with the sergeant who sees them, and they use that word as well, that it was just. So I guess I don't know really what that proves outside of that things are consistent.
Consistently fucked.
Fucked up, right? Yeah. I guess in the coming sections, and with Fiddler, Crocus, and Absalar killing those men, I feel like that is the just that is deserved.
Yeah, I would say so.
But yeah.
All right, I will start my section here. They rode beneath the starry night sky. One bandit had stayed behind with their belongings, so it was Kalam and 6 others. The 6 all had bows with no more than 3 arrows, and they were shitty ones at that. Weapon effect would be within close range only. The bandit leader, named Bordu, said the Malazan refugees consisted of 1 man who was a soldier, but appeared to be wounded, 2 women, and 2 young boys. They'd take the soldier out first. Bordu wasn't really expecting a fight. After that, Bordu said they could, quote, play with the women and boys. Kalam merely grunted. He knew men like this were only brave so long as they possessed the stronger numbers. In the early tongue, they were called, I will probably butcher this, I Petara le Gebran, vultures of violence. The prairie gave way to some rock outcroppings. A fire lit up behind one of the piles. Kalam shook his head, thinking that the soldier was careless and should have known better. Bordu stopped them short of the camp and told them not to look at the fire, not to blind themselves and spread out, and to give them a minute before attacking. Kalam looked at Bardu. They'd be coming in opposite of the others, so they ran the risk of getting shot. Kalam figured it was more soldier's humor. He advanced with Bardu, asking if his men were accurate with their bows. Bardu said they were like vipers and would not miss. Bardu asked if Kalam was scared. He was such a big man and dangerous looking. He was surprised. Kalam told him he had another surprise motherfucker and slit his throat. Before he could fall to the ground, he propped him back up on his horse and told him to ride a while longer. He told the dead man that he had hoped the seven holies flayed his treacherous soul, then thought about how they would flay him when the time came. He heard the other bandits closing on the camp. Kalam sped up, coming into the camp. He could see the attackers shoot arrows, but they didn't hit bodies, or real ones anyways. It was a trap. He heard a crossbow bolt strike true as he saw a bandit pitch off his horse. The four remaining attackers pulled into the camp confused. Someone threw something into the fire, sending sparks into the sky, lighting up the night. Another crossbow bolt took out another bandit. The flare-up had begun to subside, and a horse with no rider came into view. Kalam's spidey senses tingled. He crouched with a blade in each hand. The horse came alongside one of the attackers, and there was a rider. Crouching on the outside of the horse in one stirrup, she chopped a bandit with the meat cleaver. As he fell, she got both feet into stirrups and stabbed at the other bandit on a horse with the lance she drew. The bandit's instincts took over, and he twisted, and it missed, but the horses collided. The woman fell to the ground. The bandit drew his talwar and hopped onto the ground, but Kalam threw a knife into his throat before he could fully close the distance. A voice told him to stop. There was a crossbow bolt aimed right at him. Kalam said he was Second Army, One Arm's host. Interrupted by the voice that said 1,500 leagues away. The voice behind Kalam said he knew he was Seven Cities. Kalam said yes, yet a soldier of the Empire. He said he rode up with the bandit leader, but he was dead before he came into camp. They said he must be a deserter, and that is a death sentence. Kalam didn't disagree and said the man chose to protect his family rather than whatever unit he was attached to. Also, technically desertion. Kalam turned and saw a man who was barely alive. Looking at him, Kalam could see his rank. Captain. He said a captain deserting was a rare thing. One woman spoke and said he didn't desert. The woman who spoke, Kalam found attractive. The captain said they had a whole company ride out of Orbal, escorting refugees and their own families. As they headed south, they ran into a whole army. They were all that was left. They introduced themselves. Selv and Minala were the two women. They asked for his story. He said he was 9th Squad, bridge burners. That's why he's not in uniform. The captain smiled and asked why he was here and not with Dujek. Was he joining the Whirlwind? He said Kalam still hadn't said why he was here. Kalam said that he could smell the uprising. The Empire had brought peace to the Seven Cities, and Shaikh wanted to bring things back to the old days. Wars and slaughter. He rode for Aaron. The captain said he would ride with them. He knew how to soldier, and if he saw it on the way to Aaron, he would make sure he got into the Malazan forces without issue. Kalam asked if he could retrieve his weapons. The captain allowed it. Kalam said he should probably also change his name. The captain exclaimed, "You're that, Kalam?" The captain's knees buckled, and he would have fell to the ground if not for his wife. She eased him down. Kalam said not to worry. He's in the army now. The rest were introduced. The captain's name is Keneb. He was drugged behind a horse and had not been the same since. The boys were Veneb and Kesson. Kalam got back on his horse and was asked where he was going. He said there was a bandit guarding the food, water, and horses. They needed all three of those. They would get Keneb over a saddle. Kalam said to leave the guard to him. They wanted to know about Kalam's reputation. He said Keneb would probably say more when he came back too. Inside, Kalam hoped not. The less they knew about him, the better.
Yeah, nice, again, very action-packed section, but just, I feel like, is moving Kalam's story along. And, I didn't have a ton to, I guess, pick apart, which I don't know why that always makes me feel guilty, but that's just how some parts are going to be.
Yeah, there's, like you said, there's not a ton to pick out here. I guess reading this, I felt like something was coming, so like when he slit the guy's throat, I was not surprised, and I had a big smile light up on my face. I was like, yes, that
I did
asshole
too.
got it. He deserved it.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't specifically know that it was that this Captain Caneb had laid a trap, but I didn't really, I didn't think they were going to get snuck up on, I guess. So I don't know. I'm wondering how he knew that they were, that these, what is there? There's 5 of them, 2 kids, 2 women, and then the captain. I'm wondering how he knew they were being followed.
My guess is Kalam's little quote about the vultures of violence.
I guess, yeah. I mean, if they ran into an army and they've been on the run, you're probably assuming you're going to be followed by somebody.
Right.
So
yeah, or just good training from Captain Keneb's point of view or perspective.
That's true.
I thought it was super clever with adding something to the fire to make it brighter, so then you lose your night vision essentially, as well as the bodies in sleeping bags that were just dummies or rocks or whatever it was to put in there to make it look like a body. I thought that was clever.
Maybe think of Lord of the Rings when the ring wraiths think they're stabbing the hobbits in the bed, and it's just the same. It's kind of the same, basically the same thing.
Yeah. No, that's fair. The one big thing that I thought was, and this kind of relates to the previous section, was when Bordeaux was telling Kalam that they would run around and run the opposite direction into the camp. Kalam has this little thought about and risk being shot. This seems really stupid, but okay. And thinking about it, I think that this was just Bordeaux's way of setting up Kalam to be killed during the attack. I just kind of get this greedy feeling from Bordeaux, because he seemed really interested in Kalam's horse. And then secondarily, some of the weapons that Kalam had. So that's just kind of what I thought. Whether that's true or not, I guess it's not really revealed, but that's what I'm sticking with.
That's a really good point. I didn't even consider that, but yeah, I mean, they would have been fairly close, and I'm sure, they would have been able to tell which one was Bardu and which one wasn't, and I'm sure they had probably some sort of something worked out, where they were going to take him out. You're probably right.
Well, and I mean, to add on top of what you're saying, the fact that they're not showing any type of hesitation tells me that they are 100% confident that they're going to go in and just win. It's kind of like when you played sports teams that don't necessarily have a very good win record, and you've seen them not play very well, but for whatever reason they show up, and then you look like an idiot. It's kind of like the sense that I got is that they're just so egotistical that, they don't feel like there's even a hair to lose. Overconfident. Thank you for summarizing my rant into one word. Yes.
No worries.
I love it. But yeah, that's the only thing that I could take away from that particular section. I loved it. I thought it was great. I think that Manala is Kalam's soulmate. So I think or hope that there's maybe more there, that these guys stick around for a while, I guess, and it's not just transitional people.
I guess we'll have to see.
Right. I guess.
Sorry, I was just the same thing you were going for. I didn't have a whole lot else here, just 2 little things, but I'm not too versed in, I guess, military, units. So a company, that didn't mean much to me. I wanted to know how many soldiers that was, and according to Google, it's roughly 100 to 250 soldiers. So you got 100, if you got somewhere even on the low end, if you got 100 soldiers and they're all guarding refugees and their families, you got a pretty big group at that point. And there's 5 of them left now, so they didn't do so good. But if you run into a whole army, so that's rough. And then the captain saying, "You're that Kalam." Like, the fuck did he do that he's so infamous for? Yeah, I'm wondering about what he did to earn his reputation.
Well, I mean, my guess is that it has something to do with the claw and not being a claw anymore. Because it must not have been bad enough to be like killed, right? Maybe some like real big weird accident or something that wasn't his fault, but kind of was his fault. I don't know. Me just shooting at the stars at this point. But yeah, I find it interesting. And I think that will eventually get revealed in this book because, it keeps getting brought up in small ways.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, whether it's this book or somewhere down the line, we just get all these questions, and it's hard sometimes not knowing. Excuse me, I got hiccups a little bit. It's hard to, be patient for these answers or wonder if we're even going to get them at all.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Very true. It was, this is nothing to do with the book at all, but my network administrator at work today, I was talking with him, and he had seen me like bring in Gardens of the Moon book, and even during some work events talk about like the podcast and the book, and he was really interested in it. He had read The Wheel of Time. I think that's what started that conversation. And he told me that he picked up the book like a while ago based on my recommendation, and he read the first 3 chapters. And so him and I had a nice discussion about Pale and the Hounds and Itko Khan and Paran. So that was cool.
Nice.
And he was just like, it's and then he like hesitates, and I'm like, confusing, right? And he's just like, yeah. And I'm like, trust me, just trust the process. Everything will come full circle. Like, don't give up. Just keep reading. And he's just like, okay, no worries. He's just like, I like it. He's like, I like it. There are definitely some books where I get 3 chapters in and I'm like, this is fucking boring. So, yeah.
And then you directed him to our podcast, I'm sure, after.
And then I definitely directed him to our podcast. So, if you have eventually gets to this episode, I'm proud of you, Mike.
Way to go, Mike. I don't know you, but you got to be a good guy if you're talking to Justin.
Yep. Or one would think that, talking to me is fun.
It is fun. That's why we've been doing it this long.
Almost a year.
Almost.
Anyway, that's my little rant. Because something you were saying reminded me of that story today. So
perfectly acceptable.
Beautiful. Yeah, I guess I don't have anything else. I don't know if you do.
I do not. I'm ready to roll on here.
Yeah.
Let her rip, Tater Chip.
Man, it's been a while since I've heard that one. All right, section 3 here. An hour before dawn, Kalam and the group reach the old riverbed. He calls to them and tells them to halt and wait here. He grabbed the best of the recurved bows and 2 of the least tattered arrows from the quivers. He instructs Manala to load her crossbow. He happened to glance at Kaneb. The captain was still slumped over his saddle, unconscious. Manala reassures Kalam that Kaneb was still breathing. Kalam dog-trotted across the plain until he spotted the glow of the fire, just behind the tall grass at the bank of the riverbed. He crawled on his stomach through the tall grass. Another party of raiders had arrived, bearing gifts. Kalam saw the 5 motionless bodies of the women that had been raped and murdered. There were 7 raiders total, including Bordu's guard. They were all well armed and armored. He overheard Bordu's guard talking to the other 6 men. Promises, gifts of women and boys and horses. Kalam overheard Bordu's guard call one of the 6 men Sir in response to a question that had been asked. Kalam thinks to himself that these were true soldiers of the whirlwind. Kalam edged back and then hesitated. A soft noise was heard near his shoulder. Kalam went rigid and then slowly turns his head. It was Apt, with his head tucked low and drool dangling from his mouth. Kalam asked if it was here to help or here to watch. It gave no indication of a response. He notched the best of the 2 arrows. He had 8 men to kill. He gathered himself into a crouch and drew back on the bow. The arrow hit the troop commander in the eye, killing him instantly. Kalam had already had the 2nd arrow notched even before the body of the commander started to collapse. He chose the quickest to react as his next target. The arrow shot high due to a warped body, but luckily hit the man on the shoulder, bouncing up into the helmet. The man was instantly dead, falling into the fire. He quickly takes out another 3 with a variety of knives. 3 warriors and Bordeaux's guard all backed off to regroup. One of them calls out to the other 2 to get the crossbows ready. Kalam went after the one who'd taken charge. After a few fake blows from the assassin, the warrior was forced to counterattack, which Kalam was prepared for. Kalam intercepted the man's downward swing with his dagger's point. The dagger pierced the man's wrist and he screamed in pain, and then quickly thrust his knife into the man's chest. Kalam had to dodge an attack from Bordeaux's guard that he had not anticipated. He straightened inside the guard's reach and drove his dagger low. He felt warm liquid cover his hand, and Bordeaux doubled over in pain, taking the dagger with him. Kalam let go of the dagger and moved around Bordeaux's guard to face the other 2. They struggled to get the bolts loaded. Kalam took advantage of this and was able to finish them off swiftly. Bordeaux's guard was the only one making noise as he moaned in pain. Dropping to his knees, he takes huge, panting breaths. He heard a horse descend the bank, and he turned to find Manala. Manala aims her crossbow and counts 8 bodies, motionless on the ground. Kalam nods to this, and then cleans his weapons on the shirt of one of the bandits. The noise by Bordeaux's guard stopped. Kalam asked how the captain is doing. Manala responds that the captain is awake, but groggy and potentially fevered. Kalam suggests that they camp a bit eastward, and that the camp needs to be stripped and the bodies. He was interrupted, and Manala stated that her and Selv could take care of that, as they do not shock easily. As Kalam got up, Manala told him that there were 2 other guards. Kalam is surprised by this, and Manala reveals that they were torn to pieces and that there were chunks everywhere. Kalam just grunts at this, and Manalo speculates with Kalam as to what it would have been. They agree that it was some plains bear that did it. She tells Kalam that she will retrieve the others and will be back shortly. Kalam notices her expertise in riding a horse and compliments her inside his head. He takes a look around at the grisly scene and says out loud to himself that he needs some fucking rest. The first thing, and maybe to someone who is just reading, this may have overlooked, but is it just me and my overthinking brain? But the raiders from this other party arrived, and they said that they were bearing gifts, but they were 5 dead bodies. So is this breaching into necrophilia a bit?
I don't think so. I think your next sentence spells it out to me. I think they were raped and then they were murdered after that.
Gotcha. So the bearing gifts was
at the time
a precursor. Alive. Yes, got it. Okay. Fair enough.
That's what I think. I mean, maybe we'll come across something later stating otherwise, but I don't know. That's what I thought, is that they raped him and then murdered him.
Well, right. Yes, clearly. But I guess the way I interpreted it, and again, I guess the details don't matter, but I guess the way that I had it is that they were raped and murdered and then brought to this camp where Bordeaux's guard was, and they dropped them there. I don't know.
To be defiled further or something? I guess that could be.
Yes. And again, that's kind of where maybe that's just me being fucked up in the head like I am. But yeah, I guess that's just where my mind went, was necrophilia, which, I mean, in this world with these types of assholes, I guess I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, probably not. Hopefully, I mean, I hate to say hopefully, but hopefully they were just raped and murdered and then not raped again after the fact.
Right.
That sounds bad. That sounds really bad.
It does sound bad, but I get what you're saying. Hopefully the torment stops after the initial torment.
Yes.
But I mean, you'd be dead. So
yeah, it's just sick.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Well, I apologize for taking your mind there. That's my bad. But that's just what I initially thought, was that, this was a world where Having sex with the dead is cool. I don't know.
Maybe not cool would be,
Well, to
but
these guys, in
maybe,
their world, it's cool.
or at least not frowned upon.
Oh, right, yeah. But anyway, I digress. The other thing that I thought was cool was Kalam thinking to himself that these were true soldiers of the whirlwind. And I kind of get the sense that this was meant to be sarcastic, or maybe not. I'm not sure how the word sir, or like Kalam hearing the word sir, gives anything away as to their allegiance to the apocalypse. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I kind of thought that, these raiders, these bandits they're like play soldiers basically. And now you got the real guys showing up. So it's almost like you got the reenactors, I guess. I don't know if this is going to be a perfect comparison, but yeah, you got the war reenactors, and now you got the real soldiers showing up, and they're like, oh shit, we got to be proper now because these guys are here.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like it's, for Kalam to pick up all of that just based on hearing one word was, one, incredible, and two, was a little confusing to me. So, but the way that you're explaining it makes sense to me. Like that's legit.
Yeah, to me, I felt like these guys are just out taking advantage of the situation. Like, were they probably really going to meet up with the army at Aaron? Maybe,
not.
but I think they're just out trying to, like the vultures of violence things. They're just looking for easy pickings, some money and women and whatever else.
Yeah, that's fair. Cool. Well, thanks for I guess hashing that out with me.
Anytime, man. It's always fun.
Did you get a sense that Kalam is establishing a bond with the Aptorian a bit?
I'm not really sure. I guess it seems like there's a little bit more trust going on there. So maybe that's forming a bond.
Or he's just out in the desert by himself and has no human interaction. So he starts talking to this
thing.
Demon. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I don't necessarily agree with what I just said, or I guess I don't want to believe what I just said. I want to believe that they're establishing some type of bond, which I think is interesting. I think there could be something there.
You're going to go all X-Files here? You want to believe?
Yeah. There's something there that wasn't there before.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of role Apt is going to take. I didn't get your song, so I was just thinking of...
You didn't get my song? It's from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh.
That's not funny. I mean, Aptorian's a demon, like Kalam, I would imagine is a handsome man,
Oh, so he's the beauty?
Yeah. Or, the Aptorian can be the beauty. I'm cool with either.
Or do you think Kalam's more like Gaston?
No, because Gaston's an asshole.
He is.
Gaston would be these bandits.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, sorry, that was just really funny in my head for some reason. When I really thought about it.
Funny if I picked up on it.
But it's all good. It's kind of funny that you didn't, so it's cool.
This is gonna launch your singing career.
Yeah, stratosphere. Yeah, everyone's gonna want to listen to me sing a Beauty and the Beast song.
Hey, you gotta start somewhere.
This is true. A podcast is a good way to do it, I guess. The only other thing that I had picked out was, I think we all know that it wasn't a plains bear that ripped these two other guards to shreds, right? Like, that has to be the Aptorian.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. But here's my deeper question, is we know the Aptorian is a Shadow Throne spy, right? What if it's possible that the Aptorian is really somebody that Kalam worked with during Kellanved's reign?
Huh. Wouldn't that be something?
Right. I mean, I don't know, but I feel like along with the history theme of this book, I feel like Shadow Throne really starting to get their footing is also part of this book, because there's a lot of Shadow Throne stuff. Iskaril Poost, the Aptorian, something we read later on in this section, etc. So, yeah, not the section, this chapter.
Coming with the deep takes, because I wasn't reading into that. But I think you got a good chance at being right.
Yeah, a good pie's chance.
Yet to be seen. Yet to be seen.
Right, TBD. But
Yes.
yeah, those were, I guess, all of my thoughts on that section. Again, very action packed, and my summary didn't do the justice with the dance of violence that Kalam instows on these assholes. But yeah, it was really fun to read this section.
Well, this whole chapter was a lot of fun. I know I text you. I told you I think that I like this chapter more than the last one. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, take her away, sir.
All right. Kalam had just woken up from a deep nap. Keb shook his head and said, Kalam, who rode with Whiskey Jack across Rariku. Kalam thought the first hour or so after waking up was never pleasant. Achy joints and all. Wounds always seemed to creep up on him as he slept. Minala said she couldn't believe one man could kill 8 men all within a few minutes. Keneb said Kalam was recruited into the Claw, which is rare because normally they took children to train them. Kalam questioned his wording, said it wasn't training, it was more like indoctrination. He said attacking a group wasn't as impossible as you might think. They all wait for someone to make the first move, so he just keeps moving, keeps them guessing. However, a good squad knows how to work together. Kesson, the older boy, asked Kalam if he could teach him how to fight. Kalam said he imagined his father had a better life in store for him than that. Fighting is for people who fail at everything else. Keneb said fighting isn't the same as soldiering, though. Kalam agreed and said soldiers were worth respecting. And yes, sometimes fighting is required. Soldiering means standing firm when the time comes. So if he wants to learn how to fight, first learn how to soldier. Minala gave the boy a smile and said just to listen to his father. The boys and women left. Once they were gone, Keneb said to Kalam that Aaron was, 3 months away? There must be a Malazan settlement that's closer. Kalam said he's only heard bad news south of their position, is all tribal lands, all the way to River Vathar. Ubaird, not sure if I said that right, is close to the river, but probably taken by Shaikh. It's too valuable of a port. That and most of the tribes between their location and south of here have likely joined Kamist Rouleau. Keneb said Rouleau was chasing Coltane down and probably had them wiped out by now. Kalam said he knew much more about the situation than he did. Kalam deduced that there was an army of the apocalypse south of their location. Keneb confirmed, preparing to head to Air. Kalam asked if he had ever heard the word Gestal. He had not, and asked why. Kalam said the bandits have spoken of a Gestal inside Aaron as if it were a shaved knuckle. Then asked who commanded this army. It was Corbolo Dam. Kalam said he is a fist. Keneb said he was until he married a local woman who happened to be the daughter of Halaf's last holy protector. He went rogue, killed half his own legion, who wouldn't side with him. The other half became a mercenary company calling themselves the Whirlwind Legion. They rode in as allies, and they didn't suspect anything. Kalam said he remembered Corbolo. Keneb wasn't surprised. He was Whiskey Jack's replacement. Kalam said that was the case for a time after Rariku. He was a fantastic tactician, but he was too bloodthirsty, even for Lysine. Kalam said they should get a move on. The bandits could have friends near. He felt Minala's eyes on him. Her husband barely dead 24 hours. She must have thought they stood a chance of surviving with him in the group. He didn't want to lead her on. If he did, she would lose the reason he became attracted to her. Minala spoke up and said they should bury the dead. He told her to worry about the living. She said she was. There was 2 young boys who needed to be reminded about respect. Kalam doubled down and said no. Respect won't help them if they're dead, and told them to make sure everyone was ready to ride out. Minala said the captain gave the orders. Kalam said the captain's head was a mess. The slightest bump might send him into a hole in his mind, and then he'd be no good to anyone. Kalam thought about the boys and the lessons they would learn. Respect for life. The flip side of that coin was how cheap that life could be, and that maybe the former comes before the latter. Minala said everyone was ready. They rode off into the Odhan. Kalam hoped Apt would stay close, but not too close.
I enjoyed Keneb and Kalam's conversation about Corbolo, as well as like some of the other things. You know, I got the feeling that they were like strategizing a little bit, just I guess more or less trying to figure out their next move. And I just thought it led to some interesting conversation. So what any of it means, I guess I don't think we have enough information to deduce that, but I thought it was a cool conversation nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think, I guess this isn't so much what you're talking about, but I feel like we get a little bit of insight here as far as why Kalam has the reputation that he does. And it must be for, whatever war they fought across Raraku last time. If he was just a savage or what, I don't know. But people know about him here, and it's got to be from that.
Do you think that it has anything, now that I'm thinking about what you're saying, do you think that it has anything to do with Corbelo? Because Kalam knows a lot of information about him, and he did take over for Whiskey Jack. So I would assume Kalam didn't really have a say in that matter and would have to follow him regardless of who he truly likes, right?
Yeah. Well, it could be. Yeah, maybe they had some sort of spat. I don't know.
Yeah, another section that was very transitional, set-up-y, very easy section to read. I can visualize everything that was happening here, and yeah, I thought it was a good section. But I don't have really much to pick out.
No, not a ton, and I don't even know how much I have to talk about on it. But just when Manala wants to bury the dead and teach the boys, I guess a lesson in respect, and Kalam just kind of shoots it down. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you probably can't really afford the time to do that. So, but just the respect for life and how cheap life can be, yeah.
Well, I mean, it definitely gets him thinking, I mean, I don't know if those thoughts are really regret per se, but I definitely think that he's looking at it from a perspective that he's maybe unfamiliar with. To Kalam, you can't waste time because you have no idea what's out there. And the more you keep moving, right, the more you throw off these guys that are untrained, right? Not to say that everybody in the whirlwind is untrained, but I definitely don't get a organized unit from it.
Yeah, at least from what we've seen so far.
Right.
I'm sure, like you said, there's probably some. We just Camus Rouleau, I imagine he's fairly organized, compared to these bandits.
Right. Yeah, true.
Well, you ready to wrap it up here? Bring it home?
Yeah, bring it home. This one's a doozy. Little, probably about 3 pages long here. So, yeah, everyone grab your popcorn.
I got mine. It's ready.
You pre-popped it, huh?
Pre-popped, yep.
Had it ready. All right. A rogue wave took them from the side of the boat. A thick, sludgy substance came crashing down on them like a wave of mud. While the water drained through the silts, everyone else was left knee-deep in the foul-smelling muck. Hebrick managed to crawl his way to Felazin, spitting some slit from his mouth. He tells her to look at what's in it. Almost too miserable to respond, but nonetheless reached down and saw that it was full of seeds and rotting plants. He tells her that it's not sea down there, but prairie. This warren has recently flooded. Felazin makes a snide remark in response. The silt around her shins felt strange, as if it was crawling. She trudged her way to the back castle of the boat, where the sludge silt didn't exist. Gessler and Stormy were manning the oar, as it required 2 sets of hands to steer. Culp stood nearby, ready to take over for the man who fell first. It was clear to Felazin that they were locked in a battle of pride, and they would both likely exhaust themselves at the same time. The sky continued to convulse lightning in all directions. The headless oarsmen continued their relentless rowing, even though several oars snapped because of the thick silt water. They kept on rowing. Felazin reached the steps, and as she ascended, the silt on her legs fled as if it was alive. Crouched near the mainmast, Hebrick yelled in alarm. "There's something in it!" Truth yelled to Hebrick to grab his hand. As he was secure on the forecastle, Felazin quickly climbs another stair. The mud was transmogrifying into shapes and figures. Flint blades started appearing and ragged fur started to show. Culp shouted, Talan Emas, followed up with Logros Talan. The Talan numbered in 6. All wore furs but one, who was last to appear but had silver hair streaked with red. She faced Culp and told them to stand aside, servants of the Chained One, as they seek their kin and the Tisti Edur. One of the Talans says that the mortal worshippers are a bane, and they should be killed. Another one agrees, but their search comes first. Culp explains that there are no kin here, and the Tisti Edur are dead, and to go see for yourselves. As they approached the hatch, the female Talan with silver hair stopped and focused on Hebrick. The other two continued down the hatch. She tells Hebrick to call down the mage linked to him, as he is a wound that spreads. It must be stopped. And to add on, she says that she would tell this god that such games put him in great peril. We shall not stream such damage to warrants. Malazan is heard laughing hysterically, to which draws all the Talan to look at her. She tells them they may be immortal and powerful enough to threaten the boar god, but they haven't got one thing right. All the female Talan in response to this could say was, explain. Malazan goes on to tell them to ask somebody who cares. Hebrick goes on to explain that he is no longer a priest of Fenner, and that if the boar god is here, he has no idea. He goes on to explain that the sorcerer riding the storm is pursuing them, and he doesn't know why. The female Talan explains that the sorcerer is Otateral madness itself. The two Talan returned, and without speaking a word, the female Talan was able to know that the kin were not there, and that the Tisti Udur were indeed dead. She turns to Hebrick and tells him that she will place a hand on him. Malazan barks a laugh and takes another jab at Hebrick not having hands. This makes Culp tell her to shut the fuck up. Culp went to the main deck. He informs the Talan that they are not servants of the Chained One, and who the fuck is the Chained One? Culp at this point doesn't want to know, but he continues to explain that they came upon the ship by accident. The female Talan interrupts and explains that they did not anticipate this warren to be flooded. Malazan could see that the mage was confused, as was she, but she heard Culp ask the question if they could cross oceans. The female Talan acknowledged this question and told him that they can cross over bodies of water, but they need land to find their shapes. Culp asks if she is a bone caster. She simply introduces herself as Hentos Ilm of the Logros Talan, and that she's here to pursue renegade kin. Culp says that they were gone before they all got here. Looking at the sky, Culp says the sorcerer has eased up some. Hentos states that the sorcerer has sensed them, and then turns to Hebrick. She explains to him that his left hand is balanced between Otatero and a power unknown to her. However, if the sorcerer gains more power, it will be the Otatero that wins, and Hebrick would join its madness. Hebrick begs that he wants it gone from him. Hentos ignores him and says that they need to take care of the sorcerer, and then they must seal the warren's wounds. Culp asks the bonecaster what warren this is. Hentos pauses. Although her gaze is still locked on Hebrick, she responds that it is Elder, that it was Caral Emerlin. Culp explains that he's heard of the Tisti Andi warren. Hentos is surprised that he doesn't know this warren is Tisti Edur. She goes on to explain that Culp, Manus Rashan, and the warren he uses is a child of this warren, or a child of this place. Culp responds that Minas Rashan is the warren of Shadow, of Amanus, Cotillion, and the Hounds. The bonecaster reached down and touched Hebrick. Hentos turns away and, without acknowledging Hebrick, turns to one of her own, named Lagana Breed. She tells him that he is clanless, to which he agrees. Hentos points at Culp and tells him to do nothing. Hebrick chirps in and asks what she sensed in him. Hentos explains that even though he is shorn from his god still uses him. Malazan had a nasty comment, but held back, as she observed Hebrick slump down as if he held on to something that the bonecaster just pronounced dead. Hentos then dissolved upwards into the clouds. Lightning cracked, and Felozin and the others fell to their knees. The Salanda bucked, the pyramid of heads collapsed. The Talani mass stood there, unmoved by the bucking ship. The one named Lagana Breed reached down and grabbed one of the heads. It was Tistiande, and it was still living. The soul has been locked to the flesh by Carald Emerlan. A shriek was heard, and the storm was gone. Felozin ducked as something winged rushed past her, the smell of musty and death. Hentos was back on the main deck, face to face with Lagana, as if having a silent conversation of some sort. Felozin could hear Culp curse. She turned to look at him and saw that he was staring at the sky. She followed his gaze and saw a vast black lesion. It seemed to pull their gazes into it. Felozin had to force herself to look away. Culp, though, was having some trouble. Gessler came up and put an arm around the mage's eyes, and as soon as Culp regained his balance, he confronted Hentos. The wound, she mentioned, it's spreading, and he could feel it. Hentos explains that the soul needs to bridge, that there needs to be a soul to bridge it. Lagana Breed was on the move. Everyone watched as he ascended the Stern Castle stairs to stand directly in front of Stormy. Lagana raised his flint sword. Gessler cries out for Lagana to hold it, and if they need a soul, they can use his. Hentos simply says insufficient. Lagana explains to Stormy that he is the last of his clan, Lachey Shean, and that this weapon is their memory. He tells Stormy to carry it and learn its weight. Stormy accepted it. Hentos calls out, "Now!" Lagana takes a step back and then dissolves upwards. The wound in the sky flinched, and the edges folded in on themselves. Hentos calls out, "Sufficient," and that they would go now. Stormy calls out to her. The Bonecaster, with disdain in her voice, tells Stormy that Lagana claimed his right. Stormy asked if the bridging was painful. Hentos just shrugs, and all that is heard is her bones scraping together. Stormy, seeming to be pissed at this gesture, descended the stairs to confront Hentos on the main deck. Gessler tells him to stand off. One of the Talani Mass who stepped to intercede grabs Stormy by the neck. Gessler was ready to charge when he saw that the Talan simply held Stormy. Silent words spoken between them, and then the grip was released from Stormy. All of the Talan began to dissolve. Culp tells them to wait. As how are they supposed to get off the ship? It was too late. The Talan were gone. Gessler rounds on Stormy and asks what had been said. Stormy, with tears in his eyes, said that there was great pain. Pain that would last forever. He bolted away out of sight. Hebrick makes a comment about being clanless and how useless of an existence that was. Gessler kicks a severed head, and it thudded across the deck. Truth asks if anyone else saw what the Talan did. Gessler demanded to know what Truth was fucking talking about. Truth explains that Lagana had taken a head and tied it by the hair to his belt, and his bear cloak had hidden it. Hebrick was the first to react. Culp was the first to make it down to the oars deck. Culp returned and explained that one of them was dead down there. Felozin wanted to ask him what it all meant, but suddenly was exhausted and was deterred to ask. She saw Bowden at the prow, with his back towards everybody. She approached him and asked if it was all too much for him. Bowden explains that the Talan were always trouble. Two sides to everything they did. Felozin responds by saying that the thug has opinions. Bowden retorts and explains that not everything has to be set in stone, and it's no wonder people are always surprise her. Felozin explains that she's way past surprised, and that they are all in something and there's no way out. Grunting, Bowden tells her that those were wise words for a change. Felozin tells Bowden not to soften her up and that she's just too tired to be cruel, and to give her a few hours of sleep and she'll be back to her old self. Bowden explains so that she can attempt to kill him again. She explains that it keeps her amused. Bowden was silent for a time and then finally turns to ask her if she ever thought that maybe what you are is what's trapping you inside whatever it is you're trapped in. Felozin explains that she doesn't follow. Bowden tells her that she does follow. Woofda, 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 woofda.
Nicely done, sir.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, it was a fun section. I had lots of fun to summarize it, but yeah, lots of stuff. This is definitely, action packed mixed with some things that I have comments on.
Yeah, I mean, as fun as and good as the rest of the chapter was, this is what really made it for me, was this section.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely the treat. But yeah, when they were talking about the Warren being flooded, I just, it's so abstractly beautiful because that's not really what I had in my head on what like a Warren is, I'm getting the sense here that I almost kind of visioned Warrens as just like a point A to point B, just like a straight shot, kind of like wormhole type thing. But now
that's exactly what I kind of thought too.
Yeah, but now it just adds this, like, I imagined it's, immense in size, like continent sized, or at least part of a continent, but like sandboxed in a way. You know what I mean? Outside of the sandbox doesn't exist, but inside the sandbox that is just continents huge is the Warren or a Warren, So
Right. Yeah, it gave it a lot more like depth than what I thought.
yeah, which I thought was cool. I thought that was really cool. The one of the other things that the transmogrifying, I totally thought that was a made up word, but it's a legit word. But I loved it.
It must. I mean, it's things coalescing into shapes. I guess that's kind of what I got.
Yeah, essentially, pretty much. But it was just I've never seen that word before.
Neither have I.
I thought that it was really cool.
I challenge you to use that word in conversation sometime next week.
I challenge you to do the same.
I'll probably fail at that.
I feel like with technology conversations, I feel like I could slip that in pretty easily, but I'll take your challenge and I'll see. I'll report back to what they say.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah. Can we talk about the sheer audacity of Malazan when the Talans show up? Like,
pretty bold,
right? Like, fuck, man. She just, all fucks are gone. She just has no fucks left to give.
No, she does not.
But it just, holy shit, like the level of defiance, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm slightly impressed.
Yeah, because you're just kind of like, I mean, you gotta have some balls to talk like that to the IMAS, I would imagine. Like,
well, and she
probably not.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, just that was it. Go ahead.
Oh, and she even says it, like, I know that you may be like all immortal and power enough to threaten a boar god, but like, ask somebody who cares. It's just like, holy fuck, Malazan.
Well, maybe that kind of played to her advantage. If they're that powerful, they can challenge a god. They just see her as, so insignificant, like a bug they could just squash under their feet. They're not really going to care.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Just a minor annoyance.
Right. Just a ketchup stain on your shirt.
Nice.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was really cool was to land the whole crossing over bodies of water, but they need land to find their shapes. But think about, like, I just imagine this like pond scum type of shit that covers like a small pond. Just that many small pieces was enough for them to find their forms. Like, it's scary how adaptable that is, right? Like, it's crazy to just think of.
Well, I thought they got on the ship. Like, the ship was the land for them, right?
No, I thought it was the dead plants in the water is what I imagined, like, built.
I kind of thought that they were like just traveling through the water, swimming away, and then they're like, "Oh, we're gonna touch the butt," and then they transmogrified themselves on the boat. Look, there, I already did it.
See, there you did.
That one won't count.
No, I was just gonna say that doesn't count.
No,
I guess you could be right. I don't really see a ship as land though. Like when I interpreted that, I was assuming like rock and earth and plants and trees and shit like that, but I guess wood is technically dead trees. I don't know. I don't know. Either way could work.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I mean, it wasn't water, so they're out of the water. They could take their forms.
Yeah. So Logros to land. This is our first official introduction to members of this clan, right?
I think so. What was Tool with?
I think was he Logros?
I don't remember.
I remember Pran being Kron. Yeah, Tool is Logros. So never mind.
I'm not going to hold you to that. I mean, that was a little while ago. If you remember for sure, then that's cool. I definitely don't remember, so I'll take your word either way.
Gotcha. I guess the one thing that I have to pick apart, or not pick apart, but just the one thing that drew or got my attention was Culp says that the Logros no longer serve the Malazan Empire. And we know that there are two clans of the Amass, at least so far, the Kron and the Logros. And I wonder if that's the same for the Kron, or if they still serve the Malazan Empire. And have the Talan clans fought against one another? I don't know. I know that like there was like that one section in Gardens of the Moon where Tool is basically explaining everything to Lorne, but I didn't think that we had enough context to really understand any of it, if that makes sense. So these very well could be questions that have already been answered. I just thought it was an interesting thought. Like, if Culp is making the point that they no longer serve the Malazan Empire, well, what about the Kron? Do they still? Have they fought each other?
Well, I guess I totally blanked there. Tool was with Lacine.
No, Lorne.
And thank you. That's what I meant. They both started with an L. It's the same thing. With Lorne, and he but I guess he did fight Reyes, didn't he? Or am I mixing things up?
Tool did fight Reyes, yes.
So I don't know. Who knows what's going on?
Yeah, but even the whole clanless thing, right? Like, and I think I talk about that, so I'll just go there.
Sure.
Oh no, I didn't jot that down. But I remember having this thought about Lagana breed being clanless, and it kind of brought everything into perspective a little bit for me. Like, it made me feel that he was clanless because his clan was wiped out. And so because he's so devout, he's not going to like join another clan. And therefore that is why being clanless is useless. So it makes sense why he volunteered to sacrifice himself, etc., if that makes any damn sense. He's got nothing left to live for, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So when you were first reading that, I totally thought he was gonna, I don't remember who he went up to, but
Stormy.
I totally thought he was gonna kill Stormy.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Like, oh God, like they're just gonna sacrifice somebody to heal the gash in the sky, and was not expecting Stormy to get the sword, and then obviously Gessler wasn't either. He's like, no, don't leave him alone, take me instead.
Yeah, and just the amount of like sympathy and empathy that Stormy has for this Talan that gifted him the sword, was pretty moving. But I think it's also funny that now Stormy has one hell of a story, which is always Gessler's like big gripe, is that Stormy never has good stories. So
that's such a good point.
Yeah. Small little thing that I thought was cool. Like, man, this is going to be that would be one fucking hell of a story. Like, it was just gifted a sword, from a Talani mass. Like, that's unbelievable.
Everybody's going to be buying him drinks at the bar from now on.
Exactly.
He ain't paying for no drinks.
Yeah. The other thing about Malazan is, again, she is full of ridicule for Hebrick. And I never imagined that she would get to this level of nasty, like, again, you can feel the hate and the resentment she has for Hebrick, and all for what, Like she just absolutely loathes him. But for why?
I don't have an answer. I mean,
It's
because all
just
they've done is protect her.
and help her, right? It just but then again, that was her motivation too in the beginning was to help them. And yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what Bowden was telling her at the end with the whole I think you know what you're trapped in, but you don't really know what you're trapped in because you're trapped in it type of statement.
I really liked that, honestly.
Yeah, I did too. I did too. And did you get a sense that they were maybe bonding a little bit at the end there? Like, was that like a really small bonding moment between the two? Like, maybe there's actually a chance to heal their relationship? Because, like, Bowden just gives her a compliment out of the blue. And she's just like, nah, I'm just soft. You know what I mean? Like, I just need some rest and then I'll be
I'll
amused
be
enough to attempt to kill you again. Yeah.
I'll be my snarky old self.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did feel like they were making up a little bit of ground there.
Yeah. So yeah, I just thought that was cool. And then a couple of more comments is when Culp is asking about what Warren this was, and Hentos explains that it's the a elder Corral Emerlane, the basically the Warren of the Tisti Udur. She's responding to Culp's comment about the Warren of Shadow by saying that before Shadow Throne, there was Tisti Edur. And I think it's interesting that they used the race and not the Warren's name. And does this imply that the Tisti Edur and Kellanved joined forces? Or did Kellanved take over? Like the Tistiande did with the Starvalad Dragon Warren.
I do not know. I don't don't have any answer.
I mean I think that Kellanved took over the Tisti Edur domain because if you recall, they are gray skinned. So again, you mix light and dark, you get the color gray, or white and black, and you get the color gray. Born of Shadow Throne, Tisti Udur being a combination of light and dark. There's similarities there. And I feel like I called this out in Gardens of the Moon too, about the whole Mother Dark and light. I didn't know that there was a whole species associated with that combination.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what you said, but I do remember you bringing that up in some capacity.
I feel like we talked about it with Mora and Lee
Very
in
possible.
our Gardens of the Moon wrap up, because I definitely think that there's something here with the Tisti Udur. I get the kind of sense that they maybe are extinct, maybe the wrong word, but no longer present or
maybe
wiped
they're
out.
just like an endangered species, like there's not many of them.
Right, yeah. So, did the Tistiandi and the Tisti Udur, were they at war with each other? And that is the reason why Anamander Rake for the last 20,000 years hasn't had really anything to do. There's no purpose left because they pretty much annihilated an entire familial tree.
Could be, yeah. Maybe he hunted them down.
Right. Yeah. But I think, like I said, and this kind of goes back to my comment earlier in the episode where I was talking about the themes. This is another thing that deals with Shadow Throne and the Tisti Edur and the Corral Emerlan. But also, let's talk about the fact that Culp is a Malazan mage who has the ability to touch the Warren of Shadow. You would think that he wouldn't even be a prospect for a mage because I guess Lucine knows that Kellanved and Dancer are Amanus and Quintilian, but I feel like this also kind of explains why Culp, his Warren is not as strong as others, is because his Warren hasn't been around as long as others.
But could be. I guess I know they've talked about Warrens being older and not others that haven't been around as long, but I guess I don't remember that being relative to strength at all. But
No,
I guess why couldn't it be though too?
right? Yeah, Yeah, I just definitely think that there's more to unpack there. What to unpack, though, I mean, there's very little information, but I do feel like they are tied together, particularly with Shadow Throne and Tisti Udur. I think that there's definitely some type of conquering there or collaboration.
I don't have any arguments against that.
Eh,
It would be interesting to know.
yeah, I'm excited to read on. I mean, this part of the chapter, again, was the treat of the chapter, and definitely leaves me with more questions. And I want to keep reading.
Yeah, I agree. I just, that moment where the Imus looks at Gessler and says insufficient. I get the, I could picture it so clearly, just, it looking back and just this deep booming voice. I don't know. It
Yeah,
really resonated with me and just stuck with me. And I don't know. It seems like it feels weird that I would be all like worked up about one line, one word at that even, but
well, maybe
it's just sticking with me.
maybe your new alias could be Hentos, as she was the one who said it. So
I'll think about it.
think about it. Think about it. Or you could be Logros and I could be Kron.
And we'll just fight to the death.
Yeah, and then whoever
Armed
loses
with
gets a pie.
pies.
I was just gonna make a pie comment, but you beat me to it. You
We're
beat me
thinking
to the
same
punch.
thing. Oh, it was close.
Yeah.
You're right there.
The only other thing that I thought was cool was before Hentos goes up and I'm assuming kills the sorcerer, everyone hears like a shriek, and it was described that it was a sound that was filled with despair, but yet jarring release. And I'm assuming that this is the sorcerer in the sky being killed. And I thought that was such a cool way to tell us the sorcerer has been taken out. Like how release filled it would feel to no longer be mad and to have that suffering ended. It just, I don't, yeah, going back to your insufficient, it resonated with me how cool that was.
What if it was the head that she brought up?
I mean, I guess it's a possibility, but I
Because
don't
that
know.
was still like alive too. And to your point of like getting that release.
Oh, yeah, you make up a good point. Maybe it's both. Maybe,
Because then they find that dead body down on the ore deck.
yeah.
I'm
That
not
was
I'm not
no,
hard
you're
sold on
right.
it. It's
Yeah,
just another possibility.
you're right though. You're totally right. It totally could have been that. Yeah, just such a cool section. I was not expecting Talani Mass to show up.
No,
And that
me neither.
was fucking cool. I really didn't think we were gonna get them in this book, but yeah, it was just fucking awesome.
Well, and then I thought they were gonna just fucking kill at least some of the people on there. I thought they were just gonna start lopping heads off too.
Mhm.
So I think that got me thinking. I think they said they're chasing down their renegade kin or whatever. Maybe they're the ones who killed the people on the ship.
That's what I'm thinking, and that's what makes me think that the Tistiandi and the Tistiudur were fighting each other. Is because to me it's clear based on the order of events that the Tistiandi were basically beheaded by the Tisti-Edur on the ship and then forced to not die, essentially, but be in a stagnant position of work for the rest of their existence. And then these rogue Talani Mass show up and kill the Tisti-Udur. So it wasn't a Barghast spear, it was a Talani Mass spear.
It just happens to look similar. It's just bigger.
Right. So yeah, totally I think you and I are on the same page there.
Yeah, I think so.
It's kind of cool how two chapters do that, where they coincide with each other so well that it answers questions that you had for the most part in the previous chapter,
Yeah. So I'll be really interested to see where this turns next. This final chapter of the subbook, what kind of, I guess, I don't know if we're going to get too much resolution yet, as it'll be I guess approximately halfway through the book. I'm sure there's going to be more questions that we come across, but I definitely think things are going to be up and down from here on out. It's going to be a wild ride.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, we're reaching the halfway point of this book already, which is crazy to me, you know? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I just started it.
It's it's got, I mean, it feels like it's been a little bit, but we've had our side quests and stuff to keep us busy here too, so.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I guess I'm not wanting it to end. And I guess what I'm saying is, as far as reading this goes, I appreciate our format, even though it's not really desired for most people reading a book.
Yeah, I know I could read probably 3 chapters a night, and just burn through this, but it's the forced patience is kind of fun too.
Well, and it's making well, at least for me, I would assume for you too. It's making you appreciate the ride.
Oh, absolutely.
Savoring and suckling every moment.
Yeah, and then I mean, even when we get to reread the chapter as we summarize and everything else, you always do a really good job picking things up, and it's fun to have these conversations.
Oh, absolutely. It's crazy that a year is almost passing and we're still doing this. I always imagined that we'd be doing this for the long haul, but shit happens, right? And the fact that we're still going at it and still having a blast is very reassuring.
I agree. Well, any other final thoughts here for this chapter?
The only thing that I can think of is, did you get the feeling that this is somehow a past event, or did you feel like this was a recent thing, or both?
It kind of feels like both, so I don't really know which one I would pick.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. The whole flooding thing makes me feel like it's a recent event, but then the whole severed heads thing kind of makes it feel like it's a past event, because something would have shut them off, Yeah.
There's definitely elements to both, I think.
Yeah. Maybe that's a question we ask Steven Erickson if we ever get him on.
Well, you better write it down so we don't forget.
I know, right? Yeah, it was crazy because when I was editing the end of the Vasquez book, I found like 4 pieces of information that we were like, we should ask the author about it, and then I didn't mark down. Yeah, so yeah, fun stuff, man. But
for sure,
it ended up being like a 2-hour episode, which I would imagine after editing would probably come down to like maybe an hour and 15 to an hour and a half of content to listen to. So that's it. We did a good job.
We'll be all over the place. Just depends on the chapter.
Right. Absolutely. I still think our lowest or the least amount of time we've spent was our prologue in Gardens of the Moon.
We had one episode that was less than an hour, I think, like chapter 8 or something.
No, that was like an hour and 15. Maybe. I don't know. I guess I'd have to go look. I feel like the prologue was like 50 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that was 50 minutes. Chapter 8 was 55, so they were right there.
Got it. So pretty close. Yeah, so two episodes where we have been under an hour and everything else is just sporadic, which I love it.
Yeah. I don't see how, I mean, now that we're into this and doing it, I don't see how we could do anything in under an hour.
Not without skipping a lot of good stuff. No.
Right.
Yeah, because then I feel like we would be forced to talk about like the 2 or 3, maybe even just one biggest thing that happened in the chapter. So.
And then it would just spiral out of control because it'd be like, oh, but then this, and then this, and then this. Yeah. I don't know how that would work.
No, I really enjoy our format. So
I haven't got tired of it yet.
Nope.
I still like doing it.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, I guess there's like 20 minutes before the Last of Us episode comes on. So
well, I think it's probably on now.
Oh, I don't know. I always wait till 9.
Oh, yeah, I think it's on. It's 9 East Coast time, 8 Central.
I feel like when the first episode launched, we tried to watch it at 8 o'clock and it was like not available until 9 o'clock. We're like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. But
maybe there's just a shitload of people watching.
Maybe. Oh well, but yeah, dude, I'll probably go up there and watch that, and we'll probably be talking to you within the hour.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll send a text here. So yeah, we'll wrap this up. You can go get your dinner going and watch some show. And I'll probably do the same. So yeah, it was a good chapter, a good episode. So don't forget to check us out on our socials, Twitter, and I guess that's really about it.
yeah, right. At this point, yeah.
Yeah. I guess YouTube, you got stuff up there on YouTube, and if you're so inclined, check us out on Patreon. I imagine it's patreon.com/D&J's Epic Quest, or
Right.
search for us on there. You'll find us.
You can also find the Patreon link from our YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure it's on Anchor and Apple Podcasts too. So no pressure, but if you do, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, cool, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your night, sir.
You as well. Thanks for doing this with me again.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
See ya.
Bye.